of 16. So we'll see whether or not she'll be able to do that tonight. And then Revi is in third place with 200 points. And then Lane Thesis and Edelweiss are tied for fourth and fifth with 175 points apiece. Now, what do we mean by points? This is exactly what Don asked me about. And that is, well, every single week that you participate, you're up and eligible for points that will earn you a spot at the grand finals in San Diego, California, October 3rd to 4th. And what that breakdown looks like is if you just participate, if you just come up, play a couple games of Hearthstone, even just the first game, you're getting 15 points already towards your eligibility for the championships in San Diego. So come out and participate and make sure that you're involved in all the fun. But yeah, I'm really excited about this week, and I think before we go ahead and get into our very first match of the night, we're gonna go to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have that very first match of the night for you.
So I'm gonna hold on promoting you this quarter. Cool?
Drop the taco. Get in the car. Does this Sentra feel like a compromise to you?
Wait, what?
The handling, it's good, right? No compromise there.
Nope.
Watch this.
Come on, breathe.
Rear automatic braking. So if this Nissan Sentra isn't gonna compromise, why should you?
You're right.
Atta girl.
The all-new Nissan Sentra, with more standard safety features than any other car in its class.
It's not just the ships, the armor, or the aircraft. It's something more. It's the will to fight and determination to win, found inside each and every Marine that answers a nation's call. Battles won.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Supergirl Gamer Pro broadcast, brought to you by Zenny Gaming, Nissan, U.S. Air Force, GameStop, and the United States Marine Corps. My name is Necra, joined by Dragon Rider, and we're about to get started with our very first match of the day, but we only have 8 competitors, so our broadcast is going to look a little bit different for tonight. We're still going to be covering 4 matches, but what I'm really excited about is the way that this bracket got seeded. So for those of you that weren't able to catch our introduction, Dawn, why don't you catch everybody up to speed on what that might look like in terms of the bracket tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So the seedings and rankings, or the bracket is being seeded based on the rankings that these players have built up over the last several weeks. So this is going to make for some really great pairings in these matches. And if anybody has caught the last several weeks, or honestly, probably any of the weeks, you might recognize the names for the players that we have coming up next. And that is going to be Revi versus Trojanator. And we have seen both of these players a few times over the last several weeks. So I'm really interested to see how this shakes down this week, especially after the new expansion came out. So do you want to kind of lead in and talk about these decks?
Yeah, let's do that. So, but before we even get into it, you're right about the fact that Revi and Trojan Eater are definitely players that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. But that doesn't mean their decks are going to be the same. I feel like there's going to be two schools of thought with the new expansion coming through. Either you're going to go with what's familiar, so going with something that is tried and true that you really understand through and through, or you're going to be willing to change things up a little bit, add in a little bit of spice, a little bit of those new expansion cards coming through. So when we take a look at Revi and Trojanator's lineups, you can kind of see those two schools of thought being played through here, where there's, for Revi, a Highlander Mage, a Highlander Hunter, and we are seeing more of that Murloc Paladin coming through for Revi. And for Trojanator, it's a little bit of a difference in school of thought here, where we're seeing some newer decks come through, like a Highlander Galakron Priest, and we're also seeing like a bit of Spell Druid coming through with the newer cards along the way, and then Libram Paladin.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The Paladin decks have kind of been a little bit more popular, as well as this Druid. And I feel like Trojanator, well, and honestly, even this Priest, although I'm unsure about the kind of Highlander Priest. I haven't seen that as much, but definitely the Druid and Paladin have really kind of been big forces, I'd say, in the meta ever since the expansion came out, especially that Druid. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that Druid get banned out. But it's going to be really interesting to see. I feel like a lot of people have kind of switched over to these kind of new Scholomance decks, but it's going to be interesting to see how kind of these older decks line up, because maybe people have been playing all of these new decks and now they're kind of accustomed to those matchups and what they want to ban based on that. But now having to see, okay, well, how does Highlander Mage, Highlander Paladin, or Highlander Hunter and that Murloc Paladin, how do those kind of match up? And what do I want to ban with these new decks and this new lineup? So I'm really kind of curious on that. This is really going to be interesting. And again, that Highlander Priest as well. This is using a lot of the new stuff as well, but really interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that yet because I really haven't seen much of it.
Yeah, so I think the thing and the theme about this broadcast is like we're going to be learning as much as the viewers at home are going to be learning this expansion as well. It just came out on Thursday. So this is going to be a completely new territory for everybody involved because you've only really had a couple of days to play on ladder. If you're lucky, maybe you played in a qualifier over the weekend. But today, I think this is really where people get a chance to try out new things and really try to aim for the top. When we talk about the point structure, though, this is, I think, where it's going to get really interesting. Revi, sitting in third place, was able to take a win for the entire week for week 3, netting her a total of 200 points. And for Trojanator, who is our 2019 winner and defending champion, she struggled a little bit more, maybe getting 50 points in week 1 and week 2, and then 25 points in weeks 3 and week 4, netting her 6th place overall, so still in a great running to get to the championships in San Diego, but that's only 150 points. So I know for Trojanator, she's looking for a big win, and she's looking for something to really be able to solidify her place in the top 8 for Supergirl Gamer Pro. And so I wonder whether or not these newer decks are going to really make that difference for her.
Yeah. Well, speaking about those, it looks like the bans have come through, and both paladins have been banned, so we won't be seeing any paladin, but it looks like this first game here is going to be druid and mage. So this Highlander mage from Revi kind of on the top of the screen there, and this kind of, I would say, reformed, kind of version of spell druid
Yeah.
that's become popular for Trojanator here on the bottom.
Yeah, you can actually see one of the new cards in Trojanator's hand, and that's going to be the Teacher's Pet. Teacher's Pet is a rare minion, has a taunt and a death rattle. Summon a random 3-cost beast. And one of the reasons why I really like this new inclusion into the Spell Druid is because you can really partner it with a lot of the other spells that you have here in terms of maybe like your ability to use like your escape mana saber, and like I think that's something that I think is really interesting about Trojanator's deck, is that it's not really a full spell druid. You've got some really interesting minions in it, like a Marsh Hydra, Kael'thas Sunstrider, Ysera the Unleashed, and there's more minions than what you would expect from a spell druid deck.
Yeah, and that's kind of the variant that has become the new deck, I guess, what you could say, from this Skullman's Academy that has come out. And we see these guardian animals. The power of Lightning Bloom giving 2 additional mana, just giving that additional ramp that Spell Druid already had a lot of, has now been added in. And we saw Trojanator just play that last turn, and she just went all in, Lightning Bloom, Coin, Innervate, and getting out this powerful 7 mana spell so early in the game, putting these minions out. And the way that this Guardian Animals works, if you haven't seen it before, it does cost 7, but it summons 2 5-cost beasts from the deck and then gives them rush. And the way that this turn had played out, Revi only had 1 minion and it was dormant. So Trojanator, didn't need the rush part of it, but still just pulling 2 minions out of the deck is very, very powerful here. And Revi just, finding a way to clear and including some stealth. So very nice on her side.
For sure. And I think one of the things that was really interesting about Trojanator's play is that when you take a look at the Prison Observer going down on board, you get a little bit nervous because you know that when it awakens, it's going to deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. But the fact that you were able to bring out more healthy minions really puts Revi into this position of, well, I have to find an answer, because if I don't, then I'm continuously taking damage and I'm giving Trojanator more of that driver's seat in terms of developing momentum on board and just really setting the pace of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was Trojanator was able to get both of those 7-cost spells out already. It's only turn 6, and she has been able to put out so many things from her deck, play so many things here. And this is a really interesting minion that comes off of that death rattle. Now, this educated Elec that we see on board here for Trojanator, this Elec remembers all of the spells that were played. And when it dies, it's going to put all of those spells into the deck. So this is going to be really interesting. And not just from Trojanator's side. It's going to remember any spells that Revi plays and add them to the deck. So I wonder if Revi can find a way to she's either going to not want to play spells, to not give Trojanator those spells, or she can put more spells in the deck to kind of dilute the pool that Trojanator is going to be able to draw from. And that Ysera Unleashed also can put portals into the deck, so it's going to be kind of a weird mix of more spells and then portals. And it's going to create some really interesting draws, I think, coming up here for Trojanator.
Yeah, I'm super interested into kind of how Trojanator is going to play around that. But was Ysera able to come out so early? Look at the commanding position that Trojanator just seems to be in at this moment. With all the ramp that's in the deck, with the ability to overgrowth, as well as use your lightning blooms to be able to get out incredibly big spells super early, you're using a lot of... I think that just like kind of creates a very interesting board state So now, what is Revi going to do to answer this Ysera Unleashed that just got put on board?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at this point, it's probably just a freeze, and she can start pushing face. She might not need to clear it yet. With both the Amazing Reno and Puzzle Box in hand, she can kind of try to just stall a little bit, build up to that turn 10, and then Amazing Reno and clear the board. But yeah, with Trojanator using all of that ramp so early, she really did hit a very nice curve that she was looking for early on in the game. There can be some games where the Druid ends up drawing some of these beasts and not the ramp or not the animal that pulls things out of the deck, but she was able to find that. Now, this overflow is really interesting to me here because it can get that draw going and kind of heal the Ysera back up, maybe to pull out some portals. And she is going to go for that. But again, she can see that Revi is not quite at that turn 10 yet. And even next turn, still not going to be at turn 10. So she can kind of use that overflow this turn to take advantage and try to... I think she was trying to pull out a portal or two to kind of get a larger board there before that Reno is going to come down. But you see, didn't draw into any of the portals. But the survival of the fittest also coming into hand. This is another new card from Scholomance, and it's going to be able to buff up everything that's on board, everything in hand, and everything in the deck.
Yeah, it's +4/+4 to everything. And there's 2 copies that Trojanator is running in this deck, meaning that she's really looking at using those buffed minions later on in the game. So super interesting about how this is all going to develop. Also now, because we're getting into the power turns that the mage is able to do.
Yeah. That Mally Ghost coming into hand is pretty interesting. Revi might actually be able to use that a little bit to her advantage. There's not necessarily a lot of spells that are going to deal a lot of damage, but she hasn't gotten Mally Ghost yet, so she can find something off of the Mally Ghost as well for some extra damage. Or even if she plays Puzzle Box next turn, that can cast some spells, and they're going to benefit from that spell damage off of the Mally Ghost.
Great combo coming out from Trojanator, though, being able to use one of the Survival of the Fittest and then be able to just play out a 0-cost Anubisath Defender that just got that +4/+4 boost.
Yeah.
So now this is a pretty scary looking board. With the taunt as well, Revi doesn't really have a choice except to try to find a way through it, either by using spells coming in from the plus spell damage from the Malaghost, or just being able to do that. But yeah, you can see that the Flame Strike that came into hand from the Arcane Breath is going to be able to really help out in this situation. And Ancient Mysteries, very fun.
Yeah. And again, if this Mally Ghost stays on the board, that secret gets triggered, it does benefit from that spell damage as well. So we saw, as of right now, it was showing 8 damage that could be done, but Revi has just put on the pressure here. She is still at 30 health. The Druid ramped and pulled a bunch of stuff out of the deck and put a bunch of things in the deck, but Trojanator looks kind of behind here, and this hand is just a little bit lackluster, I'd say, to try to deal with this board.
Well, what's really interesting to me is how much pressure it was just the Bone Wraith I felt like put onto Trojanator in terms of figuring out a way to maneuver around it. And all the while, Revi was able to develop a board behind the safety of this Bone Wraith with the Mana Saber, with this Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, to provide a ton of just opportunity for Revi to just continue to put out damage. And now Trojanator is in this position where she needs to find portals, and they need to give her something good.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the spell burst triggering here, this is the new effect from the Scholomance Academy. It's the first time a spell is played when a minion has spell burst out on board. It's going to trigger that effect, and for the hothead that came out of that portal, it does give +1 attack and taunt. So Trojanator manages to find a taunt minion here, but doesn't really clear much off the board. This is still so much pressure from Revi.
Yeah, and with the ability to get through that taunt, that's going to be game 1 sealed up for Revi and that Highlander mage. Funny enough, we were talking before we even got into this series that there's the old school and the new school train of thoughts coming through from the expansion that came out on Thursday. And it's either running with something that you're really comfortable with, which is what Revi has decided to do with that Highlander mage, or running with something that's completely new and out of the box, which is Trojanator's line of thought. So it's been really fun to see those two battle it out. But Revi's taking the very first game, which means that the Highlander mage no longer on the board, so what better to replace it than the Highlander hunter?
Absolutely. And I'm really curious here. I feel like this Highlander hunter is still really situated well against Trojanator with this druid that we just saw and a Highlander priest, because the hunter can just put out so much damage and pressure, just like we saw her doing with that mage. I mean, that's kind of what hunter's thing is, right? They just a bunch of damage, put pressure. So we are getting into the second game here. It looks like Trojanator did switch over to the Highlander priest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had some questions about this deck and what it's kind of capable of doing, because it's not really a deck that we've gotten a chance to see too much of. Now, it's super interesting because it's not only a Highlander deck where it has one copy of everything in it, so 30 different cards, but it also has Galakron the Unspeakable in it. So the Galakron package is a part of this deck as well.
Absolutely. And I think the Galakron just being able to come out as a potential board clear and also generate more minions, and the ability to use Kronks after playing the Galakron as well for additional just gigantic effects, just is so strong that the priest really benefits from that. Some matchups, once the game gets further in, like that two healing is not really going to be doing as much. But being able to generate another minion to put pressure or kind of try to keep fighting for the board is great. And interesting here, though, we do see this Headmaster Kel'Thuzad that has come into hand. Again, another new card from the Skullman's Academy. And it's going to work pretty well with some of those board clears. Trojanator might be able to pull off a turn where she can clear the board from Revi and then gain all of the minions that died onto her side of the board.
Yeah, Headmaster Kel'Thuzad is really interesting because it takes advantage of that spell burst effect, or mechanic, I should say, that's been introduced with the Skullman's Academy expansion. So if the spell destroys any minions, then you get a chance to summon them. So that's definitely super scary when you take a look at the board. But I really like the Zixor Prime play, or excuse me, just the Zixor that came out from Revi just a turn ago. Because, you know, you had an option here to be able to play out the other 3-cost card that was in the hand. But I think that with the Zixor, you're just putting yourself in this position where you're able to get that Zixor Prime into your deck early, and then you draw it later.
Absolutely. And speaking of great plays, I mean, this play by Trojanator, playing this Madame Lazul, and we see that choice she had, and she saw this Dino Tamer brand. She's already running a Highlander deck. She doesn't even have to try to do anything to get this brand to trigger because she already is Highlander. So taking that off of Revi and taking that off of that Discover is going to really make a huge swing turn, I think. This is going to be really interesting once we start hitting this like turn 7 and 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because I'm looking at turn 7 and looking at whether or not this Dino Tamer brand's going to get played out by both of these players super, super early. And I feel like almost if you have to answer Dino Tamer brand with the Dino Tamer brand, you're almost behind in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be playing Dino Tamer brand and trading with the 8/8 that comes out. You want that crush to be going face. This is a really interesting choice here as well. the Raised Dead doesn't seem bad. I mean, especially if Trojanator can get the Zixor to die too, that could be really interesting with this Raised Dead. So the Raised Dead is going to deal 3 damage to her face, but it's going to give her 2 minions that died this turn, or the game, died during the game, so she could potentially get another Zixor off of that. She's going to play it beforehand, and it works really well with the Priest just being able to heal back up, so that 3 damage she took really doesn't mean much.
Not too bad. Madame Lazul and Mind Flayer coming out from that. Stormhammer now from Revy. The Imprisoned Falma now hitting the board. Oh, but interesting that Soul Mirror has come into hand.
Yeah, and Trojanator here, oh my gosh. And with 3 cards in hand from Revy, I mean, Trojanator knows the entire hand. This is 2 Dino Tamer brands in an already Highlander deck. This is insane. This is so good for Trojanator, and I'm not seeing how Revy is going to be able to answer these. I think Revy, to me, feels pretty behind.
Yeah. Yeah, this is for sure a super interesting spot. I mean, Madame Lazul is such a good card, especially when there's only 3 cards in hand. Now you kind of have a really good idea. And if you just get your choice, well, I feel like at the end of the day, you're going to pick Dino Tamer Brand because that's 16 damage that you can send face. And with your Zixor on board already, then that's additional damage that's coming away. Imprisoned Felma is not able to come out of its prison just yet. So this is definitely looking really good for Trojanator.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even mind if she just plays one here. I think you just play it. Maybe you just
go ahead and rip it.
Yeah. There could be consideration to trading with the Zixor, but don't mind just pushing all of it face either. Being really aggressive here. Hunter doesn't really have a lot of ways to deal with this, so Revy's going to have to try to find a way to be really defensive. And yeah, that is not... I mean, we kind of already talked about if you have to play the Bran to trade, but yeah, your Felma getting a trade and then not even killing the thing is also pretty bad.
That's really unfortunate because that's just not the way that you want things to go. And now Revy has this choice. Do you go for the Rottennest Drake and roll your odds on whether or not you actually get a chance to kill off the Zixor or the Crush?
Yeah.
Because, well, or you have to answer it with the Dino Tamer Brand.
No. She could make a value trade into the Zixor with it instead, so she still gets to 8/8. There was a way to full clear the board. I suppose she could have played the Fairy Dragon and Faceless Corruptor on it, and then traded. But yeah, 2 Dino Tamer brands in an already Highlander deck that were discovered. Not really beating that. So Trojanator ties it up.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be able to do that. But Madame Lazul maybe playing the Highlander Hunter that Revy brought a little dirty. But now Trojanator has to play against the Highlander Hunter with that Druid that we got a chance to see versus the Highlander Mage. And this is where I think things get really interesting because I'm not super convinced that the Druid deck is very consistent yet. Just because you are, like the way that we talked about it, we have things that need to be drawn at the right time. So like not drawing your minions, but drawing your ramp. So that's kind of where the inconsistency lies for me. But Lightning Bloom coming into hand, Bog Beam as well, and an Innervate. I mean, you definitely keep the Lightning Bloom and the Innervate to be able to ramp up super hard in these first couple of turns.
Absolutely. And I'm really interested to kind of see how this matchup plays out now, because I feel like in the past, the Highlander Hunter could just put on so much pressure, and Druid just kind of was a little bit slow to build up sometimes. I mean, even with the ramp, sometimes it could still be slow to build up, but yeah, this lightning bloom is is definitely insane. It's going to allow for a lot more play a lot earlier, and even picking up the guardian animals. So kind of finding those pieces, I think just needs a little bit more here. One more turn potentially. And for Revi, though, we do see what looks like a pretty decent curve, and even potentially curving into an early Bran. But
Yeah, with the coin in hand, that's definitely something to look at, being able to play the Dynamhammer brand really early. And even though, like, Trojanator's had a couple of slow turns so far, but here's where things get interesting. The Lightning Bloom, able to give you 2 mana crystals, you got the Innervate for an additional 1, and the Guardian Animals in hand.
Yep.
I don't see another play getting done, because Guardian Animals is just so good.
Absolutely. And those minions having rush allows her to also trade off the board the same turn as well. It's a huge swing turn.
For sure. And we mentioned that the curve is there for Revi, but now what can you really do on this turn? I guess hope. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe hope that something good comes into hands, and the top deck looks like it's definitely there for Revi right now. But I think I like equipping the Desert Spear, and then just playing with the Dwarven Sharpshooter to just get things set up and ready.
Yeah, just kind of doing something and getting a little bit on the board. There are some spells here in hand. I'm curious. I think Trojanator might have been able to play that Kael'thas last turn and would have gotten the Guardian Animals for free because it would have been the third spell. So I'm not sure if she just missed that, or if she wants to hold that Kael'thas, because that can be extremely powerful in the coming turns as well. Finding a couple minions that she can just play, not bad.
Good answers, though, from Revi. The Dwarven Sharpshooter staying alive means that you can just target down that bloated serpent with your hero power, or just go ahead and use your face, because the Desert Spear is going to give you a 1/1 Locust with Rush. And I really like that. Dragonbane also coming out here as a really nice answer.
Yeah, it does mean that she won't be able to play the Bran out as early, but taking that 50-50 to try to use that Dragonbane to clear, and it does. So that allows her to push an additional 5 damage to face, and that with that Felmaw without it having to trade. I guess if the Dragonbane effect didn't hit that 4/4, she was probably holding back the minions so that she would be able to trade with that Felmaw. But yeah, that hitting allowed her to push more damage and keep more on the board. And now Trojanator has to respond to this board, because this is, again, like we've mentioned with the Hunter, this is a lot of pressure coming down here.
Oh, do you have to just overflow here? No, I don't think you can. You overdraw way too much if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty weak turn overall. It's really not what Trojanator wants to be doing. I mean, we kind of saw that first game with the Druid. She was able to ramp really early. She was able to kind of build up some boards. But this game, it just kind of felt really clunky. She did get some ramp and played out 1 Guardian Animals already, but it kind of came and went really quickly and didn't quite stick around on the board like she would hope for.
Wow, the 50-50 again going in the way of Revi as well with that Dragonbane. Taking 3 damage to face feels pretty good if you're able to deal with that River Crocolisk with the 5 damage coming up from the Dragonbane hitting its mark there. It feels good for if you're Revi, but now again Trojanator is stuck in this position where you have to overflow And then you
Yeah.
have to hope that you get something that's going to be able to build that wall between your face and the damage that Revy is presenting on board.
Yeah. She can clear one minion, and she manages to find the Anubisath and put out a taunt here, but I mean, that hero power from Revy, again, that 50-50, if that hits the taunt, then it's really easy to clear. But she might just want to drop the Bran here to be able to push another 8. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if she can find a lethal here. I don't see a way for lethal at this point. But she's really close.
Yeah, for sure.
Is she running? Oh, finds the Rottennest. Does she have the mana to play the Rottennest Drake here?
I believe so. Yes, because all we've seen is a tap. So should be able to play the Rot Nest and then send.
But then the tracking for 1 mana. She was on 7.
The tracking, right?
Yeah, so she won't be able to play that. Okay, so she goes for the Zixor instead this turn to be able to play it and make a couple of trades here. And this is allowing her to set up to making these trades. She can set up for leaving Trojanator at just a dead to hero power next turn amount of life.
Yes.
Like, that's it. But Trojanator found those crystal powers last turn, so she can heal up for another 10, but this is still just so much damage on board from Revy.
Yeah, another Nubisath defender, just playing it out because there's no amount of mana for spells in hand to be able to make that cost 0. The Dragonbane still being on board means that there is the ability. Well, actually, calculating now. No, you still need 1 more mana to have a clean lethal with the hero power and hitting the 50.
Yeah. Trojanator has done a really great job of being able to kind of manage this board and being able to find these taunts off of the draws. Has been really good for her to kind of make this board just awkward enough that Revy can't push lethal damage, but Revy is still just finding answers.
Yeah, I like the Samot play because you can do Rush, you can do Divine Shield, go ahead and clear off the Anubis Defender with that, and then push that 5 damage face, which means that you're still in lethal range from a Dino Tamer brand Crush to the face. Unless Trojanator finds something again, maybe Guardian Animals here will be able to draw out something from the deck.
Yeah, I guess maybe Teacher's Pet for taunts. Yep.
There's one. There's a taunt.
Okay, so can clear off a little bit here. Lightning Bloom.
It's you.
Not,
but that's not going to help you.
Yeah, that's not much. Can hero power and take out the Zixor? Alright, leaving a taunt on board still. But that's not going to be enough, though. See the trade with the Sayamat, and then just the crush to face can come down. Oh, it brought out another taunt.
Oh no! Wait, Trojanator is still in this one.
Oh, that random 3-drop minion. Okay, so this changes Revy's plan yet again. Every turn, the last 3 or 4 turns have just been just awkward enough for Revy. She's had to make slightly different plays than what she really wants to be doing.
Oh, for sure. And this buys Trojanator more time to be able to find something. There's another Teacher's Pet in hand, which means yet another taunt. Kilthas can come down here, which means that you also have the ability to play out your new 10-cost card, Survival of the Fittest, when you have your Bog Beam, and you also have the Lightning Bloom and things like that. So
yeah. This is going to be a huge swing turn for Trojanator here. I mean,
absolutely.
If she could Bog Beam the Sayamat, Lightning Bloom, she can play that Survival of the Fittest, and then the cat in the middle there was going to be able to trade into the Dragon Queen. She could even play this Teacher's Pet too for another large taunt.
It's a hard call between whether giving yourself. I think you have to play out the.
I mean, this is just Wow. She's going to be able to play the second Survival of the Fittest for free.
Ooh, what a
Oh my
good
gosh.
call.
And finding the Iron Bark. Wow.
That brings that brings both minions out of range here. Well, now look at how the tables have turned.
Oh my gosh. And
What a
all
swing turn.
Oh, yeah. All Revy needed with killing that original teacher's pet was just no taunt on the 3 mana that came out from the Death Rattle. And
But the Iron Fur Grizzly of all
Yeah.
things that could have come out. That's what Trojanator got. And now you're looking at an 11/11 bear and lethal on board.
Revy able to pick up that Frostbolt. Gonna go for Caligos here. Oh, Corrosive. Yep, Corrosive. Is this gonna be lethal?
Corrosive Breath comes down.
Is that
It's able to
Frostbolt's
clear out
gonna be
the Iron
zero?
Fur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
No way. That was so
Whoa.
back and forth. Revy,
Yeah.
somehow with the 2 dragons that she was able to pull from Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, able to seal the deal. All the while, it was that Bran that was her game plan the entire time. Except time and time again, Trojanator found a way to just stop that plan in its tracks, throw a wrench in it, and then try again, a la Iron Fur Grizzly. Like,
Yeah.
incredible set between these 2 players.
Yeah, that was insane. But don't worry, we have plenty more insane action coming up. So after we take a quick break here, we are going to get into a Grumpy Kitten versus Linthesis top 4 match. And tonight we should be casting both top 4 matches. So we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
No one knows where it comes from. Why some have it and some don't. It's the fighting spirit. It consumes fear and weakness. It stands ready to fight whatever shape the battle takes. Because as long as there are battles, there will always be Marines.
So I'm gonna hold on promoting you this quarter. Cool?
Drop the taco. Get in the car. Does this Sentra feel like a compromise to you?
Wait, what?
The handling, it's good, right? No compromise there.
Nope.
Watch this.
Breathe.
Rear automatic braking. So if this Nissan Sentra isn't going to compromise, why should you?
You're right.
Atta girl.
The all-new Nissan Sentra with more standard safety features than any other car in its class.
For a long time, we had to prove ourselves. But we always knew what we were capable of. We knew when the time came, we would be ready for anything. Our numbers keep rising. And so do we.
passion to win. I'll take a chance and let you in. Just take my hand and take me home tonight. We defeat all impossibilities. Yeah, you and me. We'll take our hearts and run free into the into the into the
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Supergirl Gamer Pro Hearthstone Edition, week number 5. Can't believe it's already halfway through the season, Dawn. It's been a good one so far, and with the new expansion, things have gotten a little bit interesting, shall we say. We just saw an incredible match between Revy and Trojanator, but now we're jumping into top 4 between Grumpy Kitten and Linthesis. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Linthesis has already taken one game in the series. So as we hop in, you will be able to see the deck that they ended up winning with, since they only have one left. But Dawn, why don't you tell us what we can expect going into this matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump in real quick, let's just take a look at the bracket and see where these players have landed so far. And we can see those top 8 players there. And we see the Nysil did not move on. So we talked about her at the top of the bracket, or at the top of the show, but not making it further in the bracket this week. You know, maybe the meta got to her, not sure. But yeah, we're going to see Grumpy Kitten versus Linthesis, and then Valyria Light versus Revy later on. So again, it looks like these players kind of brought some varying decks here. So hopefully we're going to get to jump into game here in just one second and see what's going on with the decks. Grumpy Kitten bringing a very interesting looking paladin deck, I'd say. Maybe this is kind of a big paladin type thing, but a tempo, maybe. It's just so interesting. I haven't seen this deck before, and I love it. As well as a rogue and a shaman deck that ended up getting banned. And then for Linthesis, a paladin deck, kind of that all paladin Libram deck that's become a little bit popular. Some Demon Hunter and Druid, and the Druid did get banned, so we're not going to see Druid again this head here. But this Demon Hunter, a little bit interesting. I feel like Demon Hunter has kind of fallen off a little bit from the meta since the new stuff came out. So bringing that for a tournament, I think it can still definitely be strong, but people just aren't. I think people are kind of a little bit over it. Like, it's the old thing now, even though it's still the new class. You know, it was just so popular, and now people are like, no, that's Demon Hunter's old news. Like, let's get to the new stuff and play that. So we hopefully we'll get to see that in action.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. But before we jump into game, real quick, notice I got some new specs on. Thank you so much to Zenny Gaming for these amazing blocks glasses. I sit at my computer all the time, and the one thing that these blocks glasses are really good at is blocking out blue light, that harmful blue light that can damage your eyes. So not only are they super stylish, but they're really good for your health too. So if you haven't gotten a chance to go over to Zenny Gaming's website, then you should definitely do that, because their glasses are really great and they fit to your face. And you can also get them in prescriptions, or you can get them in transition lenses, whatever floats your boat. So however you like your glasses, however you like them to look, Zenny Gaming's got you covered.
Yes. And they have a really sweet kind of interactive thing on their website to try on glasses virtually. So definitely a fun thing to check out. But it looks like we are getting ready to jump into the game here. What do we expect to see?
Let's find out, shall we? Grumpy Kitten on the top of your screen. This at the bottom. And it looks like it's a Paladin versus Paladin matchup. So, you know what? Unlucky for us, Dawn, we're not going to get a chance to see the Demon Hunter. This is already won with it.
That's okay too, because you know what? My favorite class is Paladin, and we're now getting to see a Paladin mirror match. I am perfectly okay with this. I love this. And one of my favorite cards from the new set coming into hand for Linthesis, High Abbess Allura. Such a fun, cool card. I just love this. But Linthesis being able to find a couple of 1-drops, tons of... This is a really low curve hand for Linthesis.
Yeah, so let's talk about that High Abbess Allura just a little bit. If you haven't gotten a chance to see the card text yet, or see this card in action, it's a double class card. One of the new introductions from the Scholomance Academy is having these dual class cards. So not only can you play this in Paladin decks, but you can also play it in your priest decks as well. With the spell burst attached, you can cast a spell from your deck and it targets that minion if possible. So you can see some really, really cool combos coming through here as we kick things off with some Librams coming out from Linthesis.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about the difference in these hands here. Linthesis, we kind of mentioned that got the really fast start, had a low curve in this hand, been able to really play stuff out, but Grumpy Kitten starting with double subdue in hand and also a Hand of a Doll, but not managing to find a minion to play on turn 1 to get that Hand of a Doll down. So far, I feel like Linthesis has definitely been able to get out on the board really quickly here, just take this board pressure already, but I'm not counting Grumpy Kitten out yet. At all. There's definitely some tools in Paladin that can deal with some of these boards, so not counting her out at all.
Yeah, but you could see the subdue coming through. That's definitely going to be helpful. That's the tool that you were talking about. See 11-14 on board, just subdue it. Don't have to worry about it at all.
I mean, it's a 2-mana polymorph, essentially. It doesn't transform the minion, so if there's any kind of bring things back type effects, then it's not going to bring back a little sheep, it's going to bring back the actual minion, but still a very powerful effect for only 2 mana.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the board has widened a little bit for Linthesis, so you can't just use these single targeted spells, but you can see the Consecrate coming through, which is going to be a really great way to just kind of clean up some of these minions on board and also make sure that they're not going to be super tall. Particularly when you're taking a look at their health, it's something that you're a little worried about if you're looking at the Paladin versus Paladin matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such an interesting, these hands are just, they feel so awkward.
They really do.
And Linthesis got that aggressive, fast start, just got out on the board, but now the hand is kind of coming to a little bit of a halt and not really doing much here with both of these Libram of Hopes kind of clunking up the hand here, but Linthesis will be able to play out that Lightforged Crusader on 7, so if she can just kind of do something until then.
Or even just hold the ship steady for a little bit until you can play the Lightforged. That would certainly help. I feel like, the Libram of Hope has been kind of a problem for Linthesis, not really being able to play that out.
Yeah, it's going to create a lot of... and she actually finds this Aldor Attendant now to discount those again. So if she plays that Attendant this turn, she actually could play Libram of Hope next turn. which definitely helps her hand out a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Options.
Yeah, this is super interesting. The two archetypes that we're really seeing here, yes, Librams are kind of a part of both, but it's super, super interesting to see that Grumpy Kitten's version has Archmage Vargoth, Nozdormu, the Timeless, Tyrion Fordring, and Ysera, plus Scrapyard Colossus, which is very, very interesting inclusion. So it's a little bit more top heavy than what I would say Linthys's Paladin is kind of running at the moment, but even though we're seeing a lot of those top heavy cards here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, that Nozdormu the Timeless, it's that 4 mana Paladin Dragon that's going to set each player to 10 mana.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen it yet, but that is being played. A very interesting deck list. And Linthysys, I feel like playing more of a not maybe more common type list, but I mean, with things just being so unsettled and chaotic with the meta, I don't even want to call anything like common or uncommon.
That's true. Gotta
But
wait
yeah,
for a couple weeks for the meta to settle out before we can say anything is meta or not.
yeah. But yeah, definitely some differences in how these decks have been built.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but Murger McGurgle is a piece in Linthysis's pie. So, very interesting inclusion as well, because you do get McGurgle Prime that gets a chance to be shuffled back into the deck.
Although I'm a little curious on that. Is that a fish pie? Because that doesn't sound very good. I'm not sure on
You're
that.
right, now that I say that.
Fruit pie, maybe. Fish pie, I don't know about that. Maybe that's something we don't want to be eating. But
What even kind of fish would you? I don't even. We're gonna dive too deep down the rabbit hole if I start asking questions like that. So,
getting some really good use out of these Librams, though, and playing some, I mean, devout people for 0 mana, like that's pretty good. I mean, we saw in the last series, we saw the 3/5 taunt Anubisath coming down for 0 mana, but this is a 4/5 taunt with Divine Shield, so even better value.
yeah, and you could see how like the other devout pupil was also a target of one of the subdues from Grumpy Kitten, really showing how much of a threat that this minion can be, particularly in this matchup. When you have the taunt, you also have the divine shield, and that's some great ways to keep these minions alive, to be able to use these Librams and be able to use these buff spells in order to make your board a little bit taller.
Yeah, absolutely. And just talking about the deck list and kind of how these hands are coming together as well. Grumpy Kitten's list and the hand has really felt more control oriented to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of reactive cards. We've seen double subdue, the minion coming out, setting an attack to 1. It's
Yeah.
just very kind of controlling. The secret is interesting. I don't know. Did we get a chance to see what secret came out for Grumpy Kitten there? I don't think it showed what it was.
Might have been during our pie talk. Got distracted by fish pie. Now I'm still thinking about it, by the way, if you couldn't tell. Oh, but I feel as though this has been on this consistent, like, I'm gonna put out 1 minion, I'm gonna put out 1 spell. 1 minion, 1 spell. Very
Yeah.
consistent, very controlled pace, despite the fact that Grumpy Kitten has a lot of these very reactive cards. Lay on Hands coming out here, not only restoring the 8 health, but able to draw 3 cards. And then there's a random Paladin Secret coming through again. So I think we didn't get a chance to see that secret. So now that's something that Linthys is going to have to play around.
Yeah, absolutely. And she did play quite a bit of stuff and make trades last turn, so it kind of allowed her to kind of test for some of those secrets already. And here we see, and that noble sacrifice. I wonder if she could have attacked with
The 1-2.
something on board. Yeah, the 1-2 or even the 1-6, just to test for that second secret that came down. Because now that was damage missed from the weapon. I mean, I still don't think it's going to quite make a difference here unless Grumpy can really find something to get her back in the game. But yeah, Linthus is doing a really great job throughout the game, just starting with that early game that she was able to find and just putting on consistent pressure throughout the game.
Oh, there's that Scrapyard Colossus, though, which I think is just really fun. It's just such a fun card.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's enough, though. Linthesis she's got this 8-9 gigantic pupil with the Divine Shield that can get a free trade there. I think she's going to be able to get through both sides of this Colossus without any trouble.
Yeah, can even use your own face. That's how sure Lymphosis is going to be able to find lethal in this scenario. So we might have not been able to see the Demon Hunter, but we got a chance to see the Paladin versus Paladin, your favorite class, going head to head. And it looked like the more aggressive version of the deck was able to win out versus the more control-oriented one.
Yeah, absolutely. So that means that Linthesis actually takes the series 2-0.
Yeah, phenomenal stuff coming through, and Lymphosis particularly is in 4th place right now, able to secure a win last week, and really hoping for the repeat success here. Sitting at 175 points is definitely nothing to scoff at, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to bring you that second semifinal match.
So I'm gonna hold on promoting you this quarter. Cool?
Drop the taco. Get in the car. Does this Sentra feel like a compromise to you?
Wait, what?
The handling, it's good, right? No compromise there.
Nope.
Watch this.
Breathe.
Rear automatic braking. So if this Nissan Sentra isn't going to compromise, why should you?
You're right.
Atta girl.
The all-new Nissan Sentra with more standard safety features than any other car in its class.
It's not just the ships, the armor, or the aircraft. It's something more. It's the will to fight and determination to win, found inside each and every Marine that answers a nation's call. Battles won.
You can trade all the games, accessories, consoles, and tech you don't use anymore to get cash or store credit at GameStop. Check out the Trade Center on the GameStop app, visit GameStop.com/trade, or talk to a guest advisor at your local GameStop store to see how much your trades are worth.
a chance and let you in. Just take my hand, take me home tonight. We defeat all impossibilities. Yeah, you and me will take our hearts and run free into the
Welcome back, everybody, to the Supergirl Gamer Pro broadcast. My name is Necra, joined once again by Dragon Rider, and we've already made it through half the night. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the bracket to show you exactly what has gone down. We just saw Grumpy Kitten versus Linthesis. Linthesis taking the win. And now we're going over to the other half of the bracket to see Valera Light versus Revi to see who's going to be Linthesis's opponent.
Absolutely. We already saw Revi on stream before, so we kind of know that Murloc Paladin, the Highlander Hunter, and Highlander Mage. But on the opposite side for Valera Light, we're going to have a very similar to kind of what we just saw, that all Paladin, kind of Libram-focused deck, and also a Highlander Hunter. And then a very interesting looking rogue deck. It's still a Galakron rogue running kind of some secret package, or the stealth package stuff, but running some of the new cards with, like, there's Infiltrator Lillian, Lorekeeper Polkette, which is going to reorder the deck from highest cost card to the lowest cost card, Jandis Barov, which is another one of those dual class cards. I really hope that this rogue does not get banned. I want to see this thing in action. This looks cool.
Yeah, this is going to be super, super interesting. Especially when you get a chance to look at like Infiltrator Lillian, the stealth package ends up making the Galakron deck like really interesting if you end up going with something like that. Yeah, you can see the Spy Mistress. My Spy Mistress is there. You also have the Sky Vatir, and then you also have the Greyheart Sage as a part of this package as well. So I think with the Infiltrator Lillian, it's going to be really, really fun to see this deck in action.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too, when talking, we've kind of talked about it at each point of the night so far, the different decks that have been brought. And you mentioned how for Revi, she just brought like basically the same 3 decks that she's been bringing, and so far it's worked out really well for her. And we're going to see if it's going to be enough to take her into the finals. Mm-hmm. And Valera Light actually kind of did a mix of the strategy that you talked about, where this Highlander Hunter, I mean, I'm looking at the list, I don't really see any new stuff or anything in there. So it's kind of just, like you mentioned, that same tried and true deck, but the other 2 are new decks. So she kind of did a mix. And mm-hmm. I'm really curious to see how that's going to end up working out for her.
Yeah, I am as well, especially because Valera Light is sitting at 8th in our standings so far, able to take home 90 points. By sitting at 8th seed, which means that you're on the cusp of not getting a chance to go to the Grand Championships in San Diego, California, which is what everybody here is playing for, is the opportunity to be able to play in that final event. So when you take a look at kind of the tried and true versus the kind of the new school strategy approach, I really like this coming out from Valera Light because you get a chance to kind of test the waters a little bit. You still have some time. Sitting at the A seed means that you're able to get a chance to go to the championships. It's just top 8 for Hearthstone. So you definitely want to make sure that you're using all of the tools at your disposal and the time that you have, since we are only halfway through the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Valera Light, we're getting into this top 4 match, and so she's already made it this far, which means she is going to get at least another 50 points here. which really might help her, kind of get that jump that she needs. But yeah, she might really be looking to get into those finals so that she can get 75 or 100 points this week to kind of help jump her further up in those standings for
Yeah.
those finals.
Absolutely. And, Revi's sitting in a really nice position as well. Winning week 3 means that was 100 points added to her point total. So she's sitting at 200. So, I think that the tried and true strategy has definitely worked for her. And I'm really excited to see how it's going to fare against kind of the new school of thought that's really been coming through from the Scholomance Academy expansion. We've already seen some really interesting stuff, and I can't wait to see more of it when we're getting into kind of just like the new rogue cards and the paladin stuff that's coming through. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just want to bring up again that it's so cool that we get to see these individual tournaments each and every week. Each week is its own tournament, completely free to sign up. So these women can play in as many of them as they want to. They can miss a week. That's fine. It's not, it's not going to completely make or break them each week. And none of this would be possible without all of the great sponsors that we have. So again, just always a huge shout out to all the sponsors that we have. It's such a great opportunity for everybody.
It really is. And the cool thing that our sponsors have allowed us to do is they've allowed us to play 3 different titles. So this season, Hearthstone, League of Legends, and CSGO are the titles that Supergirl Gamer Pro are featuring in their 2020 circuit. And every single tournament, every single week is a brand new week. So if you're interested in signing up, go to www.supergirlgamerpro.com. That is their website, so you can see more information and also find out how to register. Also, follow us on our socials, Facebook and Twitter at SGGamerPro, and join the Discord so you can find some teammates or find some friends to be able to play in these tournaments together with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, there's the website, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, on YouTube. You can go back and find all of the videos from this year. You can find past stuff. It's just, there's so much there. So check out ASA Entertainment as well on YouTube. Just so many cool things on there. It's like not even just the gaming. There's like BMX, there's skateboarding, there's like snowboarding. There's a ton of cool stuff on there. So make sure that you check all of that out.
Yeah, what a great shout out, because not only can you see the past broadcasts, so if you've missed any of the action, well, first of all, follow us and like the Twitch page and the Facebook page to make sure that you stay updated, but also go back and watch all the VODs because there's a lot of great stuff and you can see how the meta has developed for all of our Hearthstone. But we're about time. It's about time we get into this second semifinal of the night between Valyra Light and Revi. Bans have come through. No Paladin for Valyra Light and no Mage for Revi, which leaves us with the first match that we're seeing, which is going to be Valyra Light's Rogue versus Revi's Paladin.
And so again, the Revi, we've seen Revi multiple weeks now, and I feel like this Murloc Paladin has done pretty decently for her. So I'm curious to see how this is going to be, but it seems like against the Rogue, if Revi can just get wide on board, I feel like we've talked about this matchup before. It's slightly different now because of the Rogue deck that we mentioned from Valyra Light, but if Revi can get out on board and stick a wide board, she's going to be in a pretty leading position. But Valyra Light is definitely going to have some tools to deal with these things, especially one at a time. And we see both backstabs in hand already for Valyra Light. That's definitely going to help.
For sure gonna help, but you're right about one thing, and I think that's basically the gist of this matchup, which is you take a look at a wide board from Paladin, and the Rogue doesn't really have many answers. It really only has those kind of one-ticket items like the backstab, and even when you're taking a look at the new cards like Infiltrator Lillian, Forsaken Lillian is a 4/2 summon from the death rattle that attacks a random enemy, so it's still only a single targeted effect. So I think the same problem persists, where the rogue doesn't really have a great way to deal with a super wide board.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, it looks like I was gonna say you probably just want to clear this off just in case that something can come down here and make it more difficult. And we do see the Cold Light Seer. Revi could have just dropped the Cold Light Seer there to give that Murger additional health, and that would have played around the backstab. But gonna just play out some Murloc Tidehunter here and kind of get on board. It's really not that great right now. It feels pretty weak. Valeera can easily take care of this. With just a hero power and trading in the 1/4. Oh my gosh.
Or just picking up Shiv or another backstab
Yeah.
or Deadly Poison. These choices are pretty good
Yeah,
if
they
you're
are.
Valeera Light.
Yeah, in some slower matchups or matchups where your opponent's going to be playing big minions, backstab might not do much, but I mean, with these Murlocs and low health and small things on board and trying to kill stuff one by one and not letting that board get large like we've talked about. I mean, yeah, another backstab. And Revi's not going to expect a third backstab either.
That's something that you can't really play around, and that's what makes the rogue such a potent opponent, is because of all of those random generated cards that come through from those lackeys. Like, you've got the evil miscreant that's going to give you some extra ones, and then once you get your Galakron hero power online, you're getting even more, and it ends up making it very difficult for players to actually formulate a game plan around, because you have no idea what to expect.
Yeah. I'm kind of questioning a little bit the Valeera Lights dragging that and pointing the arrow at that 1/1 Murloc last turn with that discovered backstab. It kind of could give Revi a little bit of information there. It might not make that much of a difference, but I mean, knowing that Valeera Light had already used all of her mana and could still cast something, it does kind of give away a little bit information, because it just limits the choices of what Valeera Light could have that could still be castable.
Good point.
But
Ooh, these are very good for the Draconic Lackgate's pull. But I like the Evasive Worm. I think that's a good choice there.
yeah, absolutely. And she's not going to be able to play it next turn, but she also does have the Shield of Galakron in hand for next turn. And it looks, I mean, Valeera Light, though, has taken this board. I think it's going to be a little bit tough for Revi to try to come back into this.
I think that's one of the reasons why she was holding on to the Cold Light Seer, though. And especially when you take a look at the Murloc Tidehunter and recognizing how slow Valeera Light has actually been able to play this game, Revi has a little bit of time to build up resources to be able to make a really strong board on one turn. You just have to be able to survive through it. So, yeah, you could be taking 4 damage a turn, but when it comes down to maybe turn 8 or 9, then you have all these very small, low-cost Murlocs, and then you have the Cold Light Seer on top of that to buff them up. Or just do it now.
Yeah, I don't mind this at all. I think it's probably the best chance to try to stick a board here. Does she really want to take this 3 damage into a lackey? Decides against it.
I think you're hoping that Valeera Light unstealths the pirate.
Yeah.
To be able to really help out with that. But here comes the backstab. So Revi not necessarily playing around that third copy. Here comes the second one, which will be able to clean up this board super nicely, especially with those 2 minions. And now how do you get through this Shield of Galakron that comes down?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, she does have the weapon and the Hench Clan Hogsteed. Also, one more thing. Maybe Valeera Light was really valuing having that weapon still available to use for the following turn, but there was an opportunity where she could have actually backstabbed and then just traded with her weapon instead of that second lackey. And then keep that lackey up behind this taunt now so that that opens her up for going into turn 6. She could play the Togwaggle or the Kronks or that evasive worm. Like she has a lot more potential for turn 6 if she keeps that lackey up, but she might be valuing the weapon there instead. And now for Revi, she made the trade in with the weapon. Gonna go for the Hench Clan to kill off the taunt here. Can still get really good value with this Underbelly Angler finding those mermies. And now she's beating wide on board like she wants to be doing.
Yep. This is kind of what I was expecting. At some point, Revi's going to go ahead and hit the gas, which was, okay, well, let me bait out a lot of these clearing resources like the double backstab by going ahead and using the, my buff minions now. And now what do you have for all of the minions, all of the Murlocs that I have now put on board?
Yeah.
So I think this is a really, really great answer from Revi. And if this board is able to stick, like most of it should be able to, use Scale Lord to follow this up next turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And these mermaids having reborn is also actually a pretty big deal. Because that's just going to, it makes the board more sticky, right? It's like the Death Rattles bring something back. These reborns, it's going to more likely guarantee that Revi still has a board, like you said, to follow up with the Scale Lord, or she could actually use the Scale Lord Toxfin combo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, really like that. Just because you can clear out the evasive worm super easily, and then you have the divine shields to be able to trade in.
Yeah.
Or just go ahead and put damage.
Yeah.
Okay, Consecrate works too.
There was a lot of options this turn for Revi, I think. She could have also dropped that Scargill and made her Murlocs cost 1, and then play out that Skyfin, because she does have a dragon in hand. Like, she could have played something like that as well, and that would just put some bigger bodies on board that would make it even more awkward for Valyria Light to deal with. There was a lot of options for her that turn.
I really like holding the idea of holding onto the Toxfin though, because we're also getting into some really big turns for Valyria Light, where you have the Togwaggle, that they're running Kronks and Galakrond, and some bigger minions that I feel like you want to be saving the Toxfin for some of those moments where you're not super sure you're going to have anything else for it. So I really, really like Revi holding onto the Toxfin just for some of these later turns.
Yeah, absolutely. So Valyria's going to go for the Togwaggle play here, get that wand for next turn. Looking at the board, it's just a bunch of one attack things, so doesn't feel super threatening right now. So I think Valyria Light just is taking that chance to try to get the gas going on her own side with that wand pickup for next turn. But it still can be kind of scary leaving Murlocs on board. There's a lot of buff, a lot of plus attack, the poisonous. There's a lot of ways that the Murloc Paladin can use even just these small minions to their advantage. So it still kind of is a little scary leaving a bunch of minions on board.
Yeah, especially when the Toxfin is going to be a problem as well.
Yeah.
But with the second Scale Lord coming into hand, it makes it really easy for Revi to say, hey, I can just play out the first copy that I've been holding on to, because that way we are going to see Skyfin active. No matter what happens for the next couple of turns.
Absolutely. And this Polket coming down, I think there's I think I saw that there was a visual bug on that, so it did look like it shuffled Revi's deck, but it does not reorder your opponent's deck. It does reorder your own deck. So that's why playing that, and then the wand drew her exactly what she wanted and then made them cause 0. So drawing that Galakrond, the flick, This is definitely going to be a big turn here for Valyr Light.
Yeah, that's such a cool combination. When I first saw Lore Keeper, I was like, how are people going to use this card? And now I'm just like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. So I really like this combination mix that Valyr Light has come up with through the Rogue, which is more of like a new school mixed with old school kind of feel, where you have a very like normal feeling deck, which is the Galakron Rogue, where you're comfortable, you've played this archetype before, but with these newer combinations like the Lore Keeper plus the Wondrous Wand, and that's such a cool way to see this deck get played out.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Revi hasn't really found any of the kind of buff things she's been looking for.
Yeah.
So these minions are still just kind of small and weak.
Yeah, no Cold Light Seer, no Murloc War Leader. I mean, we saw one copy of the Cold Light Seer get a chance to be played out already.
Yeah.
But you're really looking at the Murloc War Leader, especially with all of these Murlocs on board. It's like your Savage Roar. You need it to be able to deal this damage. And as Valyr Light gets a chance to play more of these turns out, you have the potential threat of a large Edwin Van Cleef, and you have to rely on your second copy of Toxfin to be able to save you from that.
Yeah. But gonna kind of take advantage of those Divine Shields to get some clears here, but now leaves it perfectly open for this Kronx to just completely clear this board and reset all of that work that Revi's done.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've used all that gas. What do you have to rebuild your board? That's like the super, super tough part of running a Murloc Paladin is once that comes through, that's kind of it.
And we see this Jandis Barov getting played as well. Kind of all these new cards coming in. This Lillian. Now, the Jandis Barov is a 5-mana 2/1. It puts 2 random 5-cost cards in play, and you secretly choose one of them that when it takes damage, it dies. So from this perspective here, we see that 4/2 and the 3/2 kind of glowing. And so for Revi, she sees that glowing effect on each of those minions and knows one of those two, as soon as it takes even just a single point of damage, it will die immediately. But she doesn't know which one of the two. But a 4/2 and a 3/2 are fairly low value for some 5-drops. So it was a little bit of a low roll kind of effect for Valyr Light, but still a lot of damage on the board for Valyr Light now. And Revi has the Murloc Paladin, just doesn't have a lot of ways to deal with those boards either. So she just kind of tried to do what she can here, and she got some stuff out on board, and maybe these Divine Shields can help get something cleared off on the other side, or help keep the board alive for herself to push damage next turn.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is really tough though, because Valyra has a lot of answers to this kind of wider, taller board that Revi has just put out on board. Yeah, this is gonna be a kind of a tough situation for Revi to get out of. Seal Fate's coming through, really helping to be able to clean up some of these minions, and then you have so much damage coming through from everything else that got put out.
Yeah. Should try drawing and seeing what else Valyr Light can find, but oh my gosh. We get to see this Lillian in action. There, it hits the minion. I think that was what Valyr Light wanted, was it to actually hit the minion there.
Well, not too big of an Edwin though, so it's still manageable. But you have 3 very, very small minions in the hand, so I think Revi has recognized that it's going to be very hard to come back from just the impassable wall the Valyria Light has been able to put out in those last couple of turns. So Valyria Light taking the first game of the series, but it's not over yet. We've seen that Revi has been able to work her way through these games with these, more classic decks, as we should call them.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen in the next game or two.
But speaking of the kind of more classic decks that we're a little bit more used to, with getting that win with the Rogue, that leaves Valyria Light with the Highlander Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Revi just sticks on with that Murloc Paladin because Murloc Paladin is, just it's so good against Highlander Hunter. That's why it's kind of brought. And so this is exactly the kind of matchup that Revi's looking for. And if she can pull off the win here with a Murloc Paladin, then they're going to go into a Highlander Hunter mirror match. But yeah, I feel like Valyria Light is just, she's hungry for those wins. She wants to get to those finals. She wants to push out of this top 4 into those finals and get those points like we were talking about earlier. So we're jumping into the game here, and it looks like Revi did stick with that Murloc Paladin.
Ooh. A nice curve for Valyria so far. Being able to play out the Fairy Dragon really early, and then you have a lot of ways to be able to follow that up. So I'm definitely taking a look at how Revi is going to kind of find a way to develop boards again. I would say, based on the number of weapons in hand, you can just kind of use your face to clear off some of these minions. But with the Zixer coming into hand for Valyria, that leaves a very interesting decision. I would say Zixer over Primordial.
I agree, especially with this weapon being played. Like, the Zixor just stays on board.
Mm-hmm.
But Valyria might want to go for the Discover, I guess. Or force the trade. Force the trade with the weapon, too, is not bad. I mean, it does allow, if the Primordial draws the attack from Revi's weapon, then it leaves the 3/2 can't be targeted up for a little bit more damage. But I'm not completely sold on it because, the Murlocs, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to get that 2 damage into the Fairy Dragon. But maybe Valyria Light really wants to save that Zixor as well to kind of, when Revi has something on board, and be able to kill it immediately.
Yeah, I don't mind this either because I think that saving the... Let's see here. Ooh. Grimscale Oracle's not too bad.
Yeah. It's at least an additional attack that she was really looking for last game.
Mm-hmm. But the Imprisoned Zone Guild play is super, super good to have early because unless you have Unleash the Hounds, how are you really able to deal with a board like this too? And this is really where the Murloc Paladin does such a good job against the Highlander Hunter.
Yeah.
There's only one copy of Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, I think the next best thing would be the Desert Spear, but we can see that Valyria Light doesn't have that. I feel like that's Revi's play of not playing out that Grimscale. I feel like kind of attests to, respecting those possibilities. Respecting that Desert Spear and the possibility of that Unleash the Hounds.
For sure.
But, if she had played it, then it would force Valyria Light to make a trade into the Grimscale Oracle kind of before possibly trading this Fairy Dragon into anything, because that Grimscale would make all of those 1/1s 2/1s.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to see the Zixor come down, make a good trade here. And Valyria Light's just going to try to manage the board as much as she can. Her hand is getting a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
Navigator. Does she want to? She might play the Navigator this turn, but I feel like that Consecration's looking pretty good.
I don't mind Consecrate here either, because when are you really going to get this perfect board to use the Consecrate? I feel like that's kind of always a spell that ends up a little bit dead in hand. But I don't mind the True Silver Champion either, because I think that it's because you're getting the 2 health from it, you're just gonna be able to get like the clear from it. You have your Reborn Mermy. So I think this is also a pretty good play when you see another option for it.
Yeah. There's a few different options here from Valyria Light now with the Scale Rider coming into hand. She could Scale Rider and just Hero Power, or she can use this Corrosive to just try to clear off more minions. And it kind of creates that nice curve. It fills in, and she gets clear and puts something on board. So that was a great draw for Valyria Light.
Oh, the War Leader. I think this is almost like the perfect time to be able to play out something that's going to buff up your minions, because you already saw so many tools that the Highlander Hunter could use to be able to clear things out, like the Corrosive Breath. You haven't seen Unleash the Hounds yet, and even if you had, you just used your Felfin to be able to buff up all your minions. So it makes the perfect opportunity for this for this play to come to fruition.
So tracking and Carrion Studies. Carrion Studies is going to find her. It's a discover a death rattle, and then the next death rattle would cost 1 less. Not really sure she wants to be looking for a death rattle right now, though. That 6-Orb Prime is definitely something. This is only turn 6, so she takes the Prime. She's still got 1 more turn in between, and she's staring down a lot of damage from Revy right now. And Revy also has this this War Leader in hand as well for even more damage.
Yeah, I think that makes the choice really hard, but I think that you have to kind of pick the Stormhammer to be able to do something about all this damage coming through. But with the War Leader play, this is there's 17 damage on board right now from Murlocs alone. And then if you play the War Leader out, that's an additional 10. That's 27? Whew.
Yeah.
I need to send it all face.
Yep. Yeah, this is a lot of damage. And you know, we talked about kind of at the beginning going into this game, this is exactly the matchup that Revy wants with this Murloc Paladin. And it just so happened that these 2 players ended up playing against each other, and Valyria Light bringing that Highlander Hunter, and just lined up really well for what Revy is trying to do. So I don't see a way that Valyria Light comes out of this.
I think that also the Paladin ban makes so much more sense thinking about Revy's win conditions as well. If you're going to ban out the Highlander Mage, then you think about what's left. And I think that ended up making the perfect decision for banning out the Paladin from Valyria Light. So now what do we have? We have Highlander Hunter versus Highlander Hunter.
Yes. Was there a new expansion that came out? I don't think this game we're gonna see it. I don't know. It's nothing. Unless they discover something new and they'll be like, what's that card? It's new. But yeah, this is a matchup that we're kind of used to already.
That's true. There's a little bit of a difference, though, in the deck lineups that both of these players are bringing. So Valyria Light has, like, what I would say is pretty classic, except for maybe the Transfer Student as one of the newer cards getting a chance to be put into the deck. And also in the Grand Slam at the top end. But for Revy, she has Face Stalker and Snake Trap, which is something that I think is very, very interesting and maybe almost even teched specifically for the Hunter matchup. No Grand Slam at the top end either.
Yeah, so the Freezing Trap and Snake Trap, you know, some of the Highlander decks have been running that kind of secret package. Some people have chosen to cut it, and I think part of it is that because there's only a few secrets, there's only 2 in list, it can be a little bit easier for your opponent to play around the secrets, as well as having the Scavenger's Ingenuity. Some people don't like pulling that Face Stalker out when playing that Ingenuity. They like being able to just play Scavenger's Ingenuity and immediately pull out some rush minions. So, we see here the snake trap already in hand and being played now for Revy. Maybe that can make a difference and be able to get out on board early. The freezing trap into that Felma is also really good. So Revy might have actually wanted that freezing trap here for this Felma, but it's going to be interesting to see how these decks line up.
Yeah, that's kind of almost why I was thinking the secret package ends up working a little bit like kind of well in this matchup, because you can use these secrets to really put a stopper into your opponent's plans, and if you're able to go kind of wide on board, that's just extra tokens to be able to help you with a lot of the damage that might be on your opponent's board. So I just think it's kind of interesting. But now Revy has kind of a choice. What do you do here? Do you float a mana and play out like the Zephyrs or the Imprisoned Felma yourself? Or do you think that there is something that could be done maybe with just the hero power? But I like the Imprisoned Felma play just in case. It gives you so much help, and a Snake Trap coming through is going to be able to bring out those tokens on board. So nice, clean, clear. I don't see the Unleash the Hounds in the hand, so that's not gonna be too bad for Revy so far.
Yeah, Valyria Light has a little bit more in her hand here, so she's going to have a little bit more options every turn than Revy will. But Revy having the board, yeah, is definitely good. Like, I feel like whoever has the board, I feel like we've talked about this almost every week because we've seen a lot of these Hunter mirror matches, but it's really just a battle of the board for the first little while of the game until somebody can kind of just break out of that and start going face.
That's true. It's kind of like the posturing that has to happen. Take control of the board and then think about how you're going to actually kill your opponent. I do like leaving the snakes up. Just pushing some of that damage face, especially when you know that on turn 5 you should be able to use like maybe your Faceless Manipulator to help out if one of them stays alive.
Yeah, that Faceless Corruptor is pretty good. For sure. Works really well with the Snake Trap. Slightly awkward choices, I feel like, here for Valyria Light. I'm not sure if you really want these. Yeah, I guess just take the Twilight Drake. It's kind of the cheapest thing. Using the Og Merchant to clear up the board here a little bit. I like this a lot. See where this Felma hits. There's a chance it hits the Poisonous and dies. Nope, not quite.
Nope.
But it still does leave something on board for Revy. She can use the Faceless Corruptor and just transform that 5/2 into a 4/4 now. Basically, she got a 2-for-1 from it.
Yeah, because then you're not too worried about the Primordial Explorer either. So I think it's okay to just face this Corruptor here.
Yeah.
It leaves a 4/2 on board, and ooh, with the Frizz. No, I think Scale Rider is just continuing to posture on board is just so important in this matchup.
Yeah.
It's so tempting, though. It's so tempting when you see the Frizz come into hand. You're like, I really want to discount all the dragons that are left.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not really a high priority right now on the ordering of things.
A couple interesting choices Revy had here. Could have just played that Rotnest Drake to get on board. It is a little weak to a potential counter Rotnest from Valyria. But I like this play. Like, you have the 50/50 to either clear the minion, or if it hits face, that's 5 more damage you push to face. And with the Dragonbane having the 3 attack, it threatens that 3 health minion anyways. But, Valyria Light just going kind of for the tempo there with the Piranhas, getting the clear. And now this Rotnest coming in really nicely. Yeah, it's a matter of like how you want to play that. You could just hero power There even could be consideration for the Zephyrus to find a turn 8 play, but I like just dropping this dragon and trying to get on board. Like you said, just kind of jockeying for position on board. And Revi has now pushed more damage to face than Valyria Light has been able to. So getting this on board, there is a potential for Zephyrus to maybe find that extra little bit of damage.
There's the crush going. Rot Nest.
Yeah.
Comes through. Doesn't feel super good having used the crush for that trade.
And the Scale Rider is going to answer that so easily.
Yeah. Plus, you have the Desert Spear that just came into hand, so you're cleaning up the Dino Tamer Bran as well if you so choose. Sending an additional damage to face.
And again, a matter of squeezing in the hero power or playing the Zephyr setup, but just pushing that damage with the hero power. I really like that.
How does Dragon Queen Alexstrasza?
Yeah. I definitely think that's a deciding factor when players are looking at when they want to play Zephyrus is, are you playing it to do something that same turn? Or if you're dropping it to do a turn for next turn, if you have something already, then you might as well save it. So, yeah, she already has this Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in hand, so no point in really playing that Zephyrus. Use it for a lethal finish or removal if it really comes to that.
Twilight Drake. Frizz, maybe thinking about it right now, but there's also the idea that you could go for the Zephyrus here, or you could go for the Desert Spear or the Battle Mage play. But the Frizz has been sitting in hand for so long. I almost wonder what you're discounting at this point.
And I guess her own Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and Rot Nest.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like how helpful.
Yeah,
I guess it ends up being pretty helpful when you're getting into like turns 9 and 10, just to be able to like play Dragon Queen Alexstrasza plus the dragons that come out. But I don't think those are quite the dragons that Revi wanted.
I don't mind this Plague Proto Drake coming from Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. I don't know if it's a card you want to include in your deck, but I mean, a 1-mana 8/8 that has a Death Rattle that's going to bring out a 7-cost minion is a lot of value.
That's true. That is true. Unleash the Hounds now coming into hand for Valyria Light. Could be useful just to be able to get a nice full clear with the Desert Spear as well.
You could. It feels like a lot of trading Valyria Light's going to have to do if she does that, though, and that does feel a little bad. She could use the Zephyrus, like play out the Unleash, play out the Zephyrus, probably finds removal for the 8/8.
Yeah, you might be able to find something like an Execute here. See whether or not the Zephyrus gets played.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can find. Okay,
Yeah,
Shadow Word Death, that'll help.
Yep.
Yeah, now you don't have to do as much trading anymore. You can use your Twilight Drake to get rid of the 1 token and then 5 damage to face. So that feels a little bit better.
And, I want to mention there could have been consideration to trading differently for Valyria Light, but I think at this point, the way she traded is she's trying to play around a potential Unleash, Zephyrus, kind of lethal, or Zephyrus, lethal potential, or Unleash and Varanus, something that Revi could have. Because she could have traded the Twilight Drake into the 3/3, put 1 Hound into the 1, and then she could have pushed face with a 5 and 2 1/1 Hounds. But I do think that threatens a lot for a counter unleash. So I think that's why she traded the way she did. And then, you know, these may not be the most impactful dragons from Dragon Queen Alexstrasza necessarily, but they're making a huge impact right here. Yeah.
They definitely do the job. I might have to force out. Like, do you run the gambit? Do you run roll the dice and see what in a Grand Slam brings you?
It's tempting, but I don't know if it's even enough. There's just so much.
Something.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Wow. That did not do much.
I was gonna say it's so tempting, but that's lethal on board, and unfortunately, that Grand Slam was not quite enough. So Valyria Light gonna go ahead and concede, but Revy takes the series 2-1, moving forward to the grand finals.
Yeah, and wow, I mean, Valyria Light getting out that first win of the series, but you know, just couldn't quite get there with that Highlander Hunter. And you know, we've seen Revy just powerhouse through some of these games like every single week. And you know, getting into another finals, this is going to be really interesting. So we are going to take another quick break here, and as soon as we get back, we will go into that finals match. So stick around, we'll be right back.
For a long time, we had to prove ourselves. But we always knew what we were capable of. We knew when the time came, we would be ready for anything. Our numbers keep rising. And so do we.
So I'm gonna hold on promoting you this quarter. Cool?
Drop the taco. Get in the car. Does this Sentra feel like a compromise to you?
Wait, what?
The handling, it's good, right? No compromise there.
Nope. Watch this. Breathe.
Rear automatic braking. So if this Nissan Sentra isn't going to compromise, why should you?
You're right.
Atta girl.
The all-new Nissan Sentra with more standard safety features than any other car in its class.
No one knows where it comes from. Why some have it and some don't. It's the fighting spirit. It consumes fear and weakness. It stands ready to fight whatever shape the battle takes. Because as long as there are battles, there will always be Marines.
To be satisfied, my weakness comes and goes. My weakness comes and goes. I'm reaching out for the easy high. Please fortify this strength
back. It is almost time for a grand final. But before we do that, we are going to go ahead and thank our sponsors once again for even being able to allow us to put on this event. Thank you so much to Nissan, to the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Marine Corps, GameStop, and last but certainly not least, Zenny Gaming. Have you guys seen my awesome specs that I've gotten a chance to wear during this broadcast? Well, they're thanks to Zenny Gaming. These are the new Blocks glasses. They block blue light, that harmful blue light that when you're sitting in front of the computer or you're gaming all day, this is a way to make you game a little bit longer. So I'm really excited about getting a chance to feature these glasses, and I hope you guys get a chance to check them out too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to get into the bracket here to show us how we've gotten to this point tonight. So we have kind of followed a couple of the players through these brackets, but a couple names that we've been seeing over the past few weeks, Linthesis and Revi in the finals. I feel like we've seen them pair against each other a few times before. We're going to see it one more time tonight for these finals. And again, they are playing for points to build up to go to the championships in October. So the difference between first and second place here, first place is going to take 100 points and second place is going to take 75 points tonight. And let's go ahead and talk about the deck list. We've seen the decks multiple times now from Revi, kind of the already tried and true Highlander Mage, Highlander Hunter, and that Murloc Paladin. And from Linthesis, this kind of all Paladin Libram deck, the Demon Hunter that we did not get to see earlier, but hopefully we'll get to see this time. And as well as kind of the Druid. Now, I do want to mention this Druid is... we didn't get a chance to see it earlier. I believe it was banned. This is still more of a kind of, I guess, traditional style spell druid. It's not running that guardian animals and all the 5-cost beasts. It's still running a lot of the spells, glowfly swarms, one soul of the forest, but it does include a few of the newer cards, a couple lightning blooms, nature studies. So it's still really spell heavy and just kind of playing on the going wide with glowflies or exotic mount sellers or Ysera and portals. So I would love to see this deck as well. And I love Linthesis lineup. Like her lineup just seems so cool. It's like a great mix, I feel like, of new and old.
Agreed, where Revi has gone a little bit more old school once again, but we've got the bans that have come through, so Revi's not going to be able to play with the Highlander Mage again. And for Linthesis, it's going to be that Paladin that got banned out, so we aren't going to see any more Librams coming through for this final series, but that does mean we might get a chance to see both the Druid as well as that Tempo Demon Hunter that you were super excited about.
Yeah. So let's take it to game one and see what each player is going to bring first here.
Yeah, I don't know what's actually going to be coming out first. I mean, I think that you kind of almost want to get like a quick win. So maybe seeing like the Murloc Paladin come through from Revi, and then maybe the Tempo Demon Hunter coming through for Linthesis, I'm thinking. Just to get something super quick off the board, especially when we saw Linthesis have that Paladin banned out before. Linthesis did go with the Tempo Demon Hunter first, which was the deck we weren't able to see in the semifinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it feels really interesting. Like you were mentioning the kind of aggressive decks. So the Murloc Paladin, definitely pretty aggressive for Revi. I would say that this Demon Hunter is also going to be pretty aggressive, and it does include a Lorekeeper Polkette, which we did get to see in that previous series, but this is going to be used a little bit differently in the Demon Hunter. That Lorekeeper going to put a Warglaves potentially as the next draw, or a Skull of Gul'dan, because this deck tops out at 6 mana with these. Yeah. So kind of a little bit of different use for that Polkette instead. And the Druid, I'm not going to say the Druid is super aggressive. It's going to be a little bit slower, but it still can create very swingy turns, very large board states, and it's going to really just be building up to those swing turns. So the Murloc Paladin and even the Highlander Hunter, if Linthesis can get those big board swings with that Druid, Revi's going to have a difficult time with both of those decks dealing with those wide boards.
For sure. We're getting word from production that the very first lists that we're going to see from both of these players is going to be Linthesis's Theses. I actually don't know how to say the Linthesis's, I think is the correct way to say this. However, she's bringing the Tempo Demon Hunter versus Revi's Hunter. That's going to be the very first lineup that we get a chance to see. And you know, when you think about it from that perspective, the Highlander Hunter we've seen perform super, super well in these last couple of series, especially when we've seen Revi piloting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this I feel like is a matchup that it kind of is close to 50-50. It might be slightly favored, you know, in one direction, but if Linthesis as the Demon Hunter can kind of again get wide on board, then the Highlander Hunter is going to struggle to deal with that a little bit in most cases. But with the addition of this Lorekeeper Polquette, like that's a little bit interesting. That might change things up, but there are still like double Frozen Shadow Weaver in that Demon Hunter list as well. So we are jumping in. We see the game on screen here now.
Ooh, Amani Berserker. I'm just super excited about seeing this combination because it kind of looked like the Og Merchant ended up popping the Amani Berserker for extra damage to enrage it.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And so we apologize. There is a bug that's unfortunately not letting us see Linthesis's hand. But wow, that Polquette
Same
coming
bug again.
down. We see it on curve.
Wow. Yeah, same bug. Polquette's definitely supposed to shuffle the hand of the player that actually played the card.
Yeah.
So don't worry, you're not seeing things. But yeah, that is super interesting because you mentioned that like the deck itself tops out at Warglaves of Azeroth plus Skull of Gul'dan, Glaive Bound Adept. So now we know exactly what order these cards are going to be coming out in. If you get really lucky, then you have a Skull of Gul'dan that comes out next, and then you're able to just pull out your Warglaves and the other Skull and maybe your Glaive Bound Adepts for 3 less. So that would definitely be something that I think Linthesis is looking for, playing this Lorekeeper Polquette out so early.
The problem here, though, is playing it on turn 4, it's going to draw something that costs 6, and she's only going to have 5 mana next turn, so she's not going to even be able to play it yet. And now that's going to cause, unless she draws the Skull next turn, that it could potentially cause those Skull of Gul'dans to end up in the middle of the hand, which could be really awkward for getting that outcast effect. So that is something to consider, but you know, again, the way the deck is built, it is only running 1 weapon and the 2 Skull of Gul'dans. So maybe it's not going to be as awkward as I'm imagining.
It's not going to be so bad. Finger Overseer now coming through with the Blazing Battle Mage. No way to... Well, there's the Hero Power, which will help to attack. So Satyr Overseer gets yet another Satyr.
Oh, this Phase Stalker can pull out that second secret. That seems pretty nice. Get some clears here, but maybe there's consideration to the Faceless Corruptor. I'm sure, yeah. The secrets being Snake Trap and a Freezing Trap in the list for Revi does make it a little bit easier for Linthesis to play around. So that kind of creates a weird board state.
Don't mind Faceless Corrupting here, because what you could do is just leave the Lorekeeper Polquette.
Yeah.
But tracking first, just to see what you find. This is a tough choice. Scavenger's Ingenuity and Dynatamer Bran are both cards that I feel like you're kind of looking at right now.
Yeah.
You pick the Scavenger's Ingenuity because you know that the 6er Prime is in the deck, or you just go with the Dynatamer because, yeah, it's Dynatamer.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and this, you know, we see this Faceless Corruptor coming down. Okay, I like this. So just try to removing as much damage off the board as possible. Because Revi's already at 10 health. So there is a lot of damage potential. And, you know, this is an open decklist tournament. So with that Polket coming down, Revi can kind of look and see that same thing that we were looking at, where she kind of can figure out what those cards are that Linthesis has drawn. And the idea of a skull being drawn to be able to play on curve and potentially draw a lot of damage does make me think that Revi was a little bit scared of some damage coming out there. So trying to remove as much damage as possible definitely makes a lot of sense.
For sure. And now you can at least clear out, I think Siamat's not too bad of an option here. I think you could like rush Wind Fury, as we've seen Revi do in the past, just to be able to clear out the board.
Yeah. There is consideration to just the rush to Divine Shield into the 5/3 and then clear, you know, the 2/2 with both of the 1/1s. And that leaves you with a 6/6 on board, but we are going to try to figure out what's going on with this little disconnect here. So we apologize for that. We will get back to that game as soon as we can.
I'm just trying to think about how you move forward, because there's kind of two lines of thought there. Do you go for leaving more minions on board, which would be the 2/1/1s, or do you go for trying to keep something that's a little bit bigger alive? I don't know. It's kind of a tough call to make.
Yeah.
Especially because like we're not really able to see, well, I guess obviously she wouldn't be able to see this either. But it makes it a little bit tougher when you really don't know what's coming out next. Is it going to be a weapon? Or is it going to be the Skull of Gul'dan? You don't really know what has gotten pulled yet.
Yeah, I feel like in that situation, I would rather have the larger thing on board. And just thinking about, there's one weapon and 2 skulls, you know, and you know they're going to get drawn because the Polket was played. And now, you know, you can see those coming into hands. There's going to be a skull that's going to be played. Yeah. And looking at the rest of the list, I mean, there's potential for a lot of damage and some, you know, small things to come out. One thing that's interesting as well is there's no... Yeah, I'm just checking the deck list here. I don't see Altruist being played in this Demon Hunter list. So that does make the play of leaving the 2/1/1s on board like a little bit more desirable, because they're not just going to get easily cleared from an Altruist, but it's also a little bit difficult for the Demon Hunter to deal with the big bodies. So that makes me think that maybe leaving the 6/6 would be a little bit better. There's not really a lot of... I guess freezing would be the only other thing, like the Frozen Shadow Weaver.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what, I guess... Yeah, I suppose you could rush Divine Shield and then go ahead and try to clear out the 5/3 and then just kind of leave it at that. But we're about to find out exactly what happened. It looks like it is going to be Rush and Divine Shield. You called it.
All right. Yep, and just clear that board. Because there is so much damage potential from the Demon Hunter. I really like that. Just don't leave the Demon Hunter any damage on board.
Yeah, for sure. And then you're free to Dynatamer Bran. But Revi's really low on health.
Yeah. And here comes the skull. And we're not getting to see what is drawn and discounted here, but I mean, if we look at we kind of can figure out what the cards are because the deck was ordered. So I think it's going to be, if I've kind of been tracking right, it's going to be both Glaive-bound Adepts and the Cobalt Spellkin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. Maybe if we're miscounting, maybe Illidari.
Well, that was already played too,
Oh,
so then it would be
yeah.
the second Satyr Overseer.
Yeah, suppose so.
If those are two Glaive-bound Adepts that have been drawn, then all Linthesis has to do is Hero Power double Glaive-bound, and that's enough for lethal.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Glaive-bound Adept number 1, and there's Glaive-bound Adept number 2. So Linthesis been able to find lethal and take this game 1. Okay, I like this. Dawn, you know what? I really like Lorekeeper Pocket on Curve.
Yeah, and I mean, it does kind of force you to build the deck in a certain way, but it kind of has a similar effect of the Scavenger's ingenuity in Hunter. Like, you kind of really get a very fine-tuned, you know exactly what you're going to be getting when you play it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Linthus is also like pushing that damage that she could early in the game also really helped her get to that point where she put Revi so low in health. I mean, she set herself up to finish off the game with those glaive bounds.
That's true. Well, now Linthesis has the Spell Druid, a little bit more of a classic deck that we've gotten a chance to see a lot of in the last couple of weeks. A couple of interesting changes. We already mentioned Nature Studies and Lightning Bloom getting a chance to be featured in this deck. And none of the cards that we really saw from our very first series with the five cost beasts and things like that. So this is definitely more of a classic approach. But now how does Revi kind of respond? You've got the Murloc Paladin and the Highlander Hunter to go up against this Spell Druid.
Yeah, I feel like both of these decks are pretty favored. I want to say maybe the Hunter is a little bit more favored, but I don't know, like, because both the Highlander Hunter and the Murloc Paladin can be so aggressive, and especially with the way that this Druid deck is built, I mean, getting on board early and just pushing the aggressive damage is going to be very difficult for the Druid to deal with. But maybe finding stuff off of the Nature Studies can kind of help find more removal for Linthesis. The Fungal Fortunes as well, double Fungal Fortunes, is really going to help draw through more of the deck. I feel like going into this, Linthesis is going to have a little bit of a difficult time, but again, if she can manage to get into one of those big swing turns that we kind of mentioned earlier, get really wide with a Glowfly Swarm or an exotic Mount Seller turn with a few minions, both decks from Revi are really going to struggle dealing with those. So it's really going to also depend on the draws and how each of these games play out. Also, maybe this Phase Stalker secret package is going to be a detriment in this matchup for Revi.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that. I am curious to see how that's going to play out, especially because if you can get really wide on board, then Snake Trap and Freezing Trap don't necessarily matter too much. So you can kind of see, well, we didn't get a chance to see the mulligan, but I would assume that Revi probably mulliganed any of those pieces away because they're not going to be super impactful in this particular set. Let's see. We saw the Nature Studies come out from Linthesis. So second copy of Nature Studies gets picked up here, which helps to be able to play out this overgrowth really early.
Yeah, that was a great draw for Linthesis. It's exactly what she was looking for.
Yeah, not too scared of an acidic swamp ooze
No.
for right now.
You know, and Revi just playing that ooze out because Druid's never going to play a weapon, so just getting the 3/2 body out early is really nice there. Might just play the Animal Companion. Yep. Oh, and gets the hopper. This is that aggressive damage that Revi is looking for to be able to try to take this game quickly.
For sure. And with the Bone Wraith that we can see in hand too, that's a great way to really kind of stop Linthesis from being able to deal with these minions super easily. I mean, you have some spells that should be able to help with that, but
yeah.
I'm thinking like Bog Beam, you don't really want to have to play off curve if you can help it.
Yeah. And this runic carvings. Oh, this is... I bet you she picks the rush. She's going to be overloaded, but wow, she gets to clear this board and then start creating her own board. That was a really great pickup.
For sure.
And no dragon in hand for Revi here, so this corrosive breath kind of only doing half the job. It could still deal 3 damage to a minion if she really wants it to, but part of using the corrosive breath is being able to push additional 3 damage to the hero's face as well. So yeah, just kind of using and taking advantage of this Bone Wraith that you mentioned.
And Glowfly Swarm coming into hand is the perfect thing for when you're overloaded. You already have spells, and Bog Beam is going to be 0, so you just get a chance to just clean everything up. And now that Bone Wraith is not going to be much of a problem anymore with the Moonfire as well. 5 minions on board for Synthesis, and no signs of stopping at the moment.
And this is exactly that kind of board state that I was talking about that Linthesis is going to be looking for as the Druid, because either the Hunter or the Murloc just really can't deal with these very easily. And especially this early. Like, Revi, later on, she could have a potential for an Unleash the Hounds or Varanus and Unleash, Varanus and like a Desert Spear, but this early in the game, that's just not even a possibility. And we see none of those in hand anyways. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit difficult for Revi to deal with. And Linthesis also having that overflow for next turn, she's going to be able to find some pieces to make this board even more difficult.
For sure. Freezing Trap, not going to be able to put too much of a dent into these plans either. So that's kind of what you were mentioning as well. Is this secret package going to be helpful or hurtful in some of these cases?
Yeah. And I really like this. Yeah. Making those value trades and then just healing them back up as well. Really great use there.
Yeah, I really like that. And you could use an Innervate this turn to be able to play out the Power of the Wild if you wanted to.
Yeah.
That's just additional damage to face.
Yep. And I mean, picking up a Savage Roar as well to be able to use, hopefully, in the next turn or two. Revi's going to have to try to find a still no dragon for this corrosive. She can use it to clear.
Yeah.
And she might have to.
Diving Griffin, too.
Yeah. Like a Diving Griffin corrosive to just get these minions off of the board. I think if this draws Zixor, no, it draws the Faceless. Can't play it though, even with coin. Gonna hope to find a dragon. Oh my gosh, this choice.
Yeah, do you take the dragon for the corrosive breath, or do you go with the Zixor or the Dino Tamer?
Whoa.
It's such a terrible decision to have to make with the tracking. I feel like this is something that we've seen quite a bit, the tracking in a situation where you like really need to find something useful, and then you see a bunch of other very useful cards that come up with it too.
Yeah, and I mean that is one of the unfortunate, times with using the tracking, but I feel like in a matchup like this, the Hunter is never getting through their deck anyways.
That is true.
So, the way to look at tracking is just consider that those two cards, I mean, even though they are out of the deck, you could consider those like maybe the Bran is just at the bottom of the deck and she wouldn't draw it anyways. It's unfortunate that she doesn't have those as a possibility, but it also does mean that she knows that those aren't a possibility now. So it will impact her decisions going forward. She knows she can't count on that brand damage later. So she's going to have to find different lines of play.
For sure.
But taking that Zixor, I liked for sure. Trying, maybe she can get it killed off and get the Zixor Prime. But yeah, Linthus is just getting strong on the board, continuing with those swing turns. You know, finding the finding that exotic mount seller, just so helpful.
Yeah, it really is. Especially when you have a bunch of low cost cards, you can really kind of take advantage of that. I think that's like the taunts specifically,
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to just if especially because you don't know whether or not you actually did burn the Dino Tamer brand. Just want to make sure that that's something that just can't be played right now.
Yeah. Having to send both of these corruptors into that 5/5 just feels a little bad. It's not really what Revi's looking to do.
Oh, not super fantastic. I almost wonder whether you go ahead and just like use the wild growth here. You have such a commanding board too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
Linthus definitely has control of this game right now.
Oh, and the poison as well.
That Soul of the Forest is so good too. Just in case Revi could
For sure.
potentially have like the Varanus Unleash or something, but wow, just going off with this. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the wide board. This is again the state that you were talking about being such a difficulty for either of the decks that Revi had in the lineup to really deal with. You're really hoping that something comes out of this Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, but there's 6, 11, 13, 16, 17 damage on board. And you can't be able to play out anything that's coming into hand because you had to coin it out. So that's going to be Linthus is taking a pretty quick series 2-0.
That was our finals. That was fast. It was so fast.
Yeah, but what a great series, and honestly, what great Hearthstone we've gotten a chance to see all day. Like with Scholomance Academy coming out on Thursday, players didn't really have a whole lot of time to be able to prep. So we saw a lot of different trains of thought. Either you go with something that's a little bit unfamiliar because you really want to just try out something new, see what deck lineups are going to feel really nice going forward in the next coming weeks, or you played the game where it was going to be just some small tweaks here and there, but some pretty classic feeling and styles of decks that we've seen time and time again in the last couple of weeks of the Supergirl Gamer Pro.
And I think that's the route that Linthus took, and it seemed to work really well for her.
Yeah.
You know, we just saw that Spell Druid and again that Tempo Demon Hunter still mostly the same and play out kind of the same ways. But yeah, just those adding a few new cards to kind of get the deck to work that much better, you know, just that much more, you know, draw potential or whatever she wanted there. And it did seem to work out. She got to go all the way to finals and then take a really quick 2-0. So, but definitely I don't want to count Revi out. Like, she still played extremely well. And she had to deal with some really awkward boards, like not just in this series, but throughout the whole night. We kind of saw some really awkward stuff just kind of happening on our board states. So definitely well played.
Super well played. Had to play to her outs, and definitely deserves the 75 points that she's going to be able to get. But Linthus with that 100, it actually means that now Revi and Linthus are tied. They're in a little bit of a competition right now to see who's going to take that third or fourth spot. But we're going to have to wait till next week to find out whether or not the standings get shaken up a little bit. That is going to be it for week 5's broadcast. Can't believe we're done with week 5 already. Means we only have 4 weeks left in these standalone tournaments. We've harked on it a lot But if you were inspired to play, then come join us next week for week number 6 of the Supergirl Gamer Pro. We are covering 3 different games. We've got CSGO, League of Legends, and of course, Hearthstone. And if you are inspired to play, head over to www.supergirlgamerpro.com so that you can stay up to date with all of the action and all of the news surrounding all of these weekly tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. And each week is its own individual tournament, completely free to sign up. So, why not try it out? There's still 4 weeks. And, even though some of these players have gotten, a lot of points already, I'm not counting anybody out yet. Like, we could have somebody come in and just totally demolish the bracket each week over the next 4 weeks and take all of the points. So I'm not counting anybody out until we get real close towards the end there. So still a chance if you want to play, and even if you just want to get a little bit of tournament experience, maybe end up on stream and kind of get to showcase your skills, sign up, join, and play. We would love to be able to cast your games as well.
Yeah, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SGGamerPro, and also join our Discord so that you can stay up to date with all the tournament action. Thank you so much for tuning in for Supergirl Gamer Pro week number 5. We'll be back on Friday with some CSGO action, so we'll see you then.